Please welcome to the world, exhausted McCormack. But yeah, thank you to Shane Ross for at least providing some levity on what has been a fantastic weekend and indeed week when we see what the equestrian team have done today over in North Carolina, adding some levity to proceedings, as is the wont of Shane Ross and his department.
I love that if you look at Sunita Paspor, the new world champion rower, if you look at her social media, she's using #dominant and everything. It's brilliant.
It's just amazing that he's like, no matter what they do, I actually never want him to lose this position, even if he, as propping up the government as he is somehow put out of government.
He may actually be World Cup. He may be world champion of Twitter cock-ups.
What would happen if Ireland were to win the Rugby World Cup next year? How would Shane Ross top himself by doing that?
Because it would depend on the adjective used in the on the online thing. Whatever they're going to paste and copy into their tweets, that's what's going to go in there.
Unbelievable. But as you alluded to there, Ireland is, as we now know, a minority sport country. Because
minority sport central.
We might look towards the football team or the rugby team to kind of provide us with these massive moments of national excitement and fervour. Whereas we've had a bunch of people who've been plugging away in the background and have gotten their just rewards over the course of the last 6 months and more. When we see what's happened this weekend, particularly with Gary and Paul O'Donovan becoming world champions, Sunita Paspor and the journey she's been on post-Rio and her disappointment getting into a C final there and not really getting going at all and having a very stop-start career. She's put herself on the road towards, she basically engineered herself towards winning a medal here.
Phenomenal.
In Plovdiv.
Totally dominated it.
And yeah, she was dominant, as you mentioned in the final. On top of that, we have to look back at the hockey, with the women's side winning a silver medal over in London back in the summer. And then today, the world's equestrian team winning Ireland's first ever team medal at the events in the eventing, and also with Padraig McCarthy, the first ever individual medal in the last 40 years.
Yeah, and I think that team is without a couple of the Olympic team from Rio. I think Aoife Clarke wasn't there, and I think there's a couple of other people as well. It's like I never understand why we don't do better with equestrian, because even though people have this notion that equestrian sport and show jumping and all that's for posh people with money, like if you're from the country like I am and you see people, particularly farmers, people have horses, ponies, kids grow up on ponies. That's why our jockeys are so good, because they all grow up on ponies and in pony racing and all that, and we have great results in them. Now, it always seems to be that the problem is to hold on to the quality of horses and not let them get sold away, or else you need what would you call it, like a patron almost, to fund you to have brilliant horses. But that's a really big result. That's an amazing result.
They're going to be the latest team that are going to be coming under the microscope for that old chestnut funding.
Funding, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because in fairness, there was a report yesterday, we covered it in the pay-per-view, that was uncovered in the Times across the weekend. They did basically a freedom of information request and found that Colin Coyle was the journalist, found that of the, I think it was 175,000 that Rowing Ireland had requested in capital grants from the government, and they'd received, I think, about half of that. 90,000 to go forward. And then yesterday we have Minister Ross as well as saying that Dominant Paspor had won a gold medal. He's now saying that that rowers won't be found wanting.
He's going down the back of the sofa again, Richie. Remember the way he went down the back of the sofa after...
I want the mattress that Shane Ross has, because there's an endless supply of savings back there. As soon as you have success, you'll find another fiver down there for you.
We have never been told officially where that money came from, that 1.5 million that suddenly appeared, that they pulled out of the bag after the Hockey World Cup to fund a lot of sports. And rowing and sailing both got money in that, but they didn't get what they wanted, as has appeared now. And it actually, what's amazing, a lot of the rowing success, like rowing isn't all perfect there. And Sunita Paspor last December was given out because Rowing Ireland had changed the heavyweight coach. So it's amazing.
Against her will.
Against her will, yeah. So it's amazing the way things happen and come through. I think with rowing, they remind me a bit of boxing, maybe 10 years ago.
They don't know what they have.
Well, not only that, but there's talent, and then there seems to be this culture of high performance, this culture of pushing each other. And when other people succeed in your team, and I heard people talking about somebody said to me recently, they've got this amazing gym. Like, I was down in the Irish Rowing Centre in Farran outside Cork City last year, and the gym downstairs is the most, like, it's a high performance gym in that it's got big weights and everything, but it's a small in under not far from the boats, and it's not a big, posh gym that you would see. It is a serious working gym, and it's in a small space, and they are in there busting their guts.
Well, even see the quotes from the O'Donovan lads saying that they went off to, I think it was New Zealand and Australia.
New Zealand, yeah.
Basically to get away, and they were talking about ergonomic tests and lab tests that were involved in their training down there. Like, this stuff doesn't come cheap, and to kind of, like, you kind of think of 90 grand, people might think that it's a lot of money. I'd imagine it'd be very quickly spent. And when you consider that they were over in Rio with 4-year-old boats, and the like, and again, people might scoff 4-year-old boats or 4-year-old boats the same as a 4-year-old car. Things improve and get better, and they lose speed over time.
Exactly, and if it's established now, which it is, that we've the best lightweight pair in the world at the moment, and we've the best female single sculler. Surely they should have the best equipment in the world. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? So it is really interesting. And we've had a ton, and I know people keep talking about, women, but it's not only women have been successful in these minority sports during the summer. There's a young badminton player from Dublin, Nat Neugen is his name, and I met him earlier this year, and he's fantastic. He did his Leaving Cert and confessed he wasn't doing a whole load of study, but he won a European junior medal at the weekend, and he
was competing in senior championships as well recently,
he's the Irish senior champion at the moment, and he also is already playing professionally in Germany. He goes over and he plays for a club in Germany that the McGee's used to play in. So there's a talent there. Look, in badminton, right? His parents are Vietnamese and moved to Ireland, and he's just a real character, and I just think he's really going to be one we'll hear more of. We saw it all over the place. Reece McLennan, the gymnast, obviously, Jenny Egan, the canoeist, and a guy called Ronan Foley has been doing very well on the canoeing circuit recently as well. Russell White, remember, the triathlete, got a medal in the World Cup recently. There's just, and all the para athletes, swimming and track and field this summer. There's loads of talent out there, but there's always about two things: coaching quality and funding. They're the two things. And the big problem always in Ireland is that the coaches aren't funded. So therefore, generally, a lot of them aren't professionals. So how do they continue to improve themselves while they're trying to combine it with another job? And that's always my question: is where's the coaching? How are we improving our coaching, and how are we funding our coaching so that they're going to take all this junior talent and this talent in different sports and take it on?
Well, worrying now, there is a trend, and you can say, it's a small sample size, but there's a trend of two of the better coaches of so-called minority sports, and you can throw amateur boxing into that, because let's face it, not everybody on the street corner is involved in amateur boxing. What we've seen happen with Billy Walsh, whatever about the circumstances surrounding it, ultimately he went off and worked for the USA and has gone on to have success there as well. And you see what happened with Craig Fulton with the Irish men's hockey side. He basically saw that the Belgian setup was going to be easier for him, and just went, I'm going to go and have a tilt at this over here, even if it is in a slightly lesser capacity, because you're coming up against brick walls so often, it seems, no matter what the sport over here that you're, like we were talking yesterday in the pay-per-view, when we were talking about capital grants, it's basically like the nuts and bolts stuff that rowing are looking for in this instance. They're looking for trailers and they're looking for boats.
Yeah.
The absolute bedrock of what the sport is built on, and they're struggling to have funding okayed for that. That's just mind-boggling.
Sailing have done something really interesting, right? So we know we got an Olympic medal in sailing last time out, right? And almost got one the last time. They're after doing something really interesting thereafter, but again, probably the social strata that's in sailing has allowed it, but they have got people to fund privately a new trading centre out in Dunleary, and basically it's 3 crates, those industrial crates. So they've put them, they've been given a place, Irish Lights have given them a place to do, they've put them there, they've got a space where the top athletes can keep their boats rather than having to be moving around between all the clubs. And I think it's cost something like 350,000, but they have basically gone off and used private enterprise to fund this new training centre because they couldn't get the money. And look, nobody has an unlimited pot of money. We're a small country, we've come through a recession, but we need to, probably if we need to use all this talent and get it to the next level, it would be nice to improve our funding, which hasn't improved in recent years.
There doesn't seem to be that correlation between talent and achievement and the money that is there, laid there to facilitate further achievement and further talent coming along in the backwater, but we mentioned successes. Ladies football has gone from strength to strength. I know you were there yesterday, 50,000 on hand, 50,141, the official attendance at Croke Park. It is remarkable to see the robust health in which ladies football finds itself, considering what's going on in the men's game. We'll get to what happened in Tyrone momentarily as well, but what's going on in the ladies game is just an absolute breath of fresh air.
It is, and you have to give credit to the people who run LGFA, who've been there for years, who really have always pushed the envelope. You know, they've brought in the stop clocks, they've, you know, brought in sin bins, they've done stuff, they've been innovative. Even 2 years ago, Carla Rowe scored the 2 goals yesterday, or 3 years ago. Remember, there was a score that Dublin got that was, they had no Hawkeye first, there was Hawkeye this time. So they are willing to change, and I think they're just that have the kind of innovation. I always had this argument as well, Richie, that I think that social media has changed the face of minority sports, in whatever sport that is, because where they couldn't get space to sell their sports and get new people in, social media now has been a big forum for them. So it has allowed them to get sponsors, it has allowed them to create an audience, and there was a decent audience there before. Like I said, in 2009 when Dublin, you know, started that cycle against Cork in finals, there was 21,606 people at that, right? So it's not like this is overnight, but what we see is there has been a substantial jump. Lille, for example, came into the ladies' football. Do you remember that big campaign, famously the Lady Balls, one to attract all the interest? But that hashtag serious support. Lidl actually started in 2016, but the year before that, if I'm right in thinking that, there was nearly about 30,000 at the All Ireland, and that year there was nearly 34.5. So the movement had already started, and I think a lot of it has to do with great work in the grounds and clubs, great work by the LGFA, and also it's a great game. I actually think women's football is a very attractive game to watch. Now, actually, the senior final yesterday, I didn't think it probably didn't showcase it because it was such a negative. Like, it was such a defensive game, if you like. There were nerves involved, and it was like watching men's football now. You know, Dublin just brilliant at recycling ball, Cork doing everything possibly they could to defend it, but there wasn't, like, if you see Dublin in full flow against weaker teams, I mean, the quality of their foot passing, which we saw very little of yesterday, if you like, was brilliant. Tyrone actually yesterday in the intermediate final, the quality of some of their foot passing was brilliant. They had more space. So the game, I think, is a great game, and people love it, you know. There
is again a next plateau for them to go and get to, which is to build on this again. They want to maintain these crowds of 50,000, build on them again if they can. Possibly down the line. Katie Liston's piece in the Sunday Independent yesterday touched upon some of the problems though that are facing the LGFA and the Camogie Association to an extent as well, and it's that separation of the LGFA and the Camogie Association from the GEA. Now, basically the three coming together, I can't really see as being a workable solution, but closer affiliation would surely help. Yeah, and verbally there has been, and notionally there is an agreement of some kind of integration into the future, and also in clubs. The big thing is to kind of integrate in clubs. The one club scenario. Actually, noticeably though, I noticed it during the week as well, Aoife Fitzgerald thanked the Cork County Board for the use of Páirc Uí Chaoimh for training. I don't think that's ever happened before. And of course, Cork have a female chairperson now, the GA board. So it is interesting that the pressure... It's very hard to get into Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It is very hard to get into it before, and now that's starting to happen. So look at, you know, sometimes things take progress. My bigger worry actually is that, you know, I think we can, like, I thought 46,000 last year, that was a groundbreaker because it was a huge jump. It was over 11,000 jump on the previous one. But my thing now is, I was at the semi-finals both years, and the semi-finals this year was a triple header. Now, you can argue Roscommon wasn't a great place. There couldn't be more than 3,000 people at the All-Ireland semi-finals, and that's my question is, if people can go to Croke Park now in big numbers, the big challenge is get them to championship games on a regular basis and get them to... I was at the league finals this year in Parnell Park. Yeah. There were 2 brilliant games, Division 1, Division 2, really good games. There were no... I think it was the weekend, you know, that spare weekend that the GA have now for club stuff. So they weren't up against anything. And again, one of the stands in Parnell Park was full, but there was hardly anybody else there. That's what you have to build an audience for. That's the problem they're going to be up against, because this Sunday just gone, and it's the same for the Camogie final as well. They essentially have a Sunday to themselves, and what goes along with the Sunday to themselves is a week's lead-in to themselves, to that final. So you're able to build the anticipation for a final and build the coverage and talk to the players and get the names out there, and they're all brilliant stories, like Owen Carey yesterday talking about not coming to the game until she was 11, being a competitive dancer coming to it. So there's loads of great little bits and pieces. It's maintaining that involvement, and you know, we're as guilty of it as anybody, that suddenly you find yourself squeezed for space, and it's trying to get visibility throughout the year is the difficult. And it's trying to, as I said, you know, we always say the Irish are a bit of event junkies, like we like a final, right? And the €25 to get into 3 finals yesterday is fantastic value, and it's great value. You can get 10 kids, I think, and an adult for €55 or something like that. So that shows it, and it's a very young audience. A lot of them are school kids. That's brilliant. My argument was they should be giving away tickets for free
TV for years, and now they're promoting the schools end of it, which is brilliant. But why can't you create an audience? So are they just there because it's the All-Ireland final, it's a fantastic day, or do they appreciate women's football for what it is and for what the athletes do? And I think that's the challenge now, is to try to get people to open their minds to go to more women's games. And I know maybe the LGFA particularly have worked on it, and the Camogie starting maybe have double headers with the men's games if it coincides with National League fixtures. It definitely helps. The Dublin have played in Croke Park on the same night as their men's, and I think that visibility is huge for them.
A little bit more of that, I think, would be great to see. Keep your text coming. 53106 for 30 cents is the number. While we're talking minority sports, says one texter, and let's not forget our multiple world and European karate medalists across all federations. Thank you for that. Also, Connor on Twitter saying, loving the rise of non-traditional sports at Off the Ball. Don't forget Rhys McClenaghan and his gold in the gymnastics last month. We haven't. We mentioned him there as well. We need to relocate lotto monies to its original home. Sports funding, problem solved, says one texter. Seems very simple, doesn't it?
Well, that texter is so right. And I don't buy lottery tickets. And the reason I don't buy lottery tickets is not because I don't wish that I could have a windfall, but actually because that was what the lottery was set up for. And it got sidelined year by year. It started paying for libraries and various other things. But the original function, and there was a Cork politician whose name escapes me, that's what the lottery was set up to fund sport in Ireland. Much like in the UK to a degree, because that ended up having a massive impact on Team GB and London 2012 and all of that. What do you make of Jordan Murphy's comments around PC rugby? Surely very ill thought out and dangerous considering the amount of early retirements, asks Cassie in Limerick. In case you're wondering what we're talking about, here was Jordan Murphy speaking just this past weekend.
Jordan, so much to enjoy about that game, but one thing flashes out from that game, and I'm going to ask you now, the red card for Will Spencer. What's your view on it?
Oh, it's a really tough one, isn't it? Will's 6'10", and he's tackling a bloke who's 5'10", and the guy's actually pulling out of it and falling over as well, so his height has dropped. It's a really tough one. At the time, I thought he might have got a yellow. I thought red was really disappointing from my point of view.
The referee in Tempest was very clear in his decision making. He talked everyone straight through it, and as far as the letter of the law is concerned, it would suggest that was a red card. So we're potentially going to see that more and more. Your views as a man preparing a team, preparing the big guys to go out there and do a bit of damage, does that change how you're going to be coaching and what the message is to the players? Oh, it's really difficult. Obviously you get a bloke who's that tall, and it's very difficult for him to go forward and be flexible and bend over. So I'm going to try and pick some players who are under 5 foot, and it's going to make it very difficult to referee that, to be quite honest, because you're not really going to be able to tackle anyone, are you? I think the game's gone a little bit too PC, a little bit too that for me is crazy. It's rugby. Tommy Taylor was fine. Di Young stood beside me. He seemed okay with it. There was no HIA. There was no real danger to the player. It was a really good shot on a player who probably wasn't, and it's killed the game really.
Acting coach of Leicester Tigers, Jordan Murphy there, in a week where Dominic Ryan announced his retirement from rugby at a far too young age. Murphy's comments seem to be reckless at the very least.
I was really surprised at Jordan Murphy, because he's always struck me as a really well balanced, smart guy. I think I saw the tackle. I just think I thought he was wrong. Now I'm not a rugby player, so maybe there's some fine thing, but it looked to me as if Will Spencer actually, like, his shoulder went in his head. There was no attempt to wrap the arms. There was none of that. It looked dangerous to me, and the argument after was that somebody wasn't badly injured and there wasn't a HIA. That's irrelevant. They're trying to make the game safer. They know that whatever it is, 76% of concussions are caused in tackles, and the tackler actually generally ends up far more, is the one who's more susceptible to injury. I just think when it's player safety, and there's so many questions about player safety, I think that probably the culture is going to have to change in rugby, and I just think when it's player safety, there's no questions.
Well, this is the thing.
The ref will have to he'll have to follow the new rule.
We're talking, well, this is the problem with new rules, but you would presume that somebody who has been in the game as long as Murphy and has seen the amount of instances that he would have done of concussions, of head injuries, etc., and just the general culture of people coming out of it not so well. There's been far too many over the course of the last while. I've had to retire late 20s, early 30s, when there's notionally a few more years left in them. To come out with comments like that, that's not going to. What we talk about,
it's going to be contentious. I think it's going to be contentious area this year. I think it's going to be repeated during the year.
Well, we talk about we're talking about getting kids involved in certain sports and getting kids involved, particularly in ladies football, as we just mentioned. There are a lot of parents, we have to be honest, being put off the notion of putting their kid forward for rugby, given the nature of concussions. Players are only getting bigger. the people are only being built more like Will Spencer in terms of rugby from now on. So his glib comment that they're only going to field 5-foot players from here on doesn't hold any water at all.
No, and the notion that he was 7 inches taller and that he couldn't get down, like there's tons of 6'5", 6'6". What about Devon Toner? You know what I mean? He has to get down and tackle. And when they looked at it, I didn't think he made any effort to get down low. That was the thing. There didn't seem to be any effort to get his body low. He just went in with the shoulder, wasn't there? Yeah.
We should mention the news round, of course, brought to you this evening with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. It follows, dovetails into talk of what's going on in Tyrone as well over the past while. We saw this evening that the county board have released a statement condemning the events that marred the county championship over the course of the weekend. We saw the pictures in the paper today. Sean Kavanagh hospitalised following his club Moyes meeting with Eden Dork. He had a bad concussion, a broken nose and facial injuries after receiving a knee to the face in that championship match, one that resulted in, I think, 26 cards overall, 6 of them red. Another match in the intermediate championship produced, I think, 27 cards, and a mass brawl on Friday evening, the video of which has been going around social media for the past 72 hours.
I think
stuff, really.
Now I think the Sean Kavanagh, from what I've heard, I talked to a few people today, they does seem to be a feeling, we'll be interested to hear what Sean says, that actually those injuries, horrific though they appear and are, might actually have been, it wasn't a case of anybody trying to,
kind of do them,
that it was an accidental clash, and you can have very bad serious injuries from an accidental clash. He hasn't clarified yet, except there's a lot of speculation going around. But I've heard from people who know people who were at the match who said, no, that was accidental. Now, the amount of cards... But it is a match with 6 cards and 20 yellows. It is a match with an unbelievable amount of cards in it. And I don't think that any referee, you can't blame that just on one referee's interpretation. That's an awful lot of cards. The other one, the one where you see people, that thing of subs coming off a line, people going down from the crowd. People who saw that video, you can actually hear a woman in the background going, catch yourselves on, and just being just horrified by it, and I just don't know what gets into, well, that's obviously red mist that comes down, but county boards, the procedure is always the same. What are they going to say? They have to have an investigation into it. I have a memory of years, quite a long time ago, one of the Tyrone, Joe, the two boys, the two brothers.
McMahon's, is it?
One of the McMahons got a jaw broken in a club game, and what surprised me, because I tried to get to the bottom of it, was as a journalist at the time, was I rang the club, and I repeatedly rang, and I repeatedly looked for somebody in the club to talk to me, and they didn't.
Shutters came down.
Shutters come down. That's what's wrong. That omerta where people pretend that nothing happened. If somebody gets their jaw broken, at least let's find out, how did that happen? Do you know what I mean? That has to happen, as you say, because otherwise the reputation of a sport can get destroyed.
Indeed.
And it doesn't just happen in Tyrone, by the way, and it doesn't just happen in GAA either. But it is an unfortunate confluence of them in the same county this weekend.
When you see two matches in the one county, producing this kind of these kind of pictures of the space of 48 hours, it points towards a worrying trend. But sure, the Tyrone CCC say they'll look into it over the course of the next while. Now the Ryder Cup kicks off next week, and you can stream all the action live with the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. With the Now TV Sky Sports Pass, you only pay for the days you want and can stream all 10 Sky Sports channels. We're going to be over in France next week, are we? Right, and Nathan and Joe, all right, are going to be at Le Golf National. Of course not. To celebrate, we're giving away a 12-month Now TV Sky Sports Pass. How about them onions? Spin with a chance of winning. Just identify our Ryder Cup mystery voice who loves a game of drafts or checkers, and here he is explaining the rules.
And you just keep trying to nudge a little bit forward.
They are very tricky to get hold of.
And you just keep trying to nudge a little bit forward.
Text your name and your answer if you think you know who that man is to 53106 for 30 cents, and we'll announce a winner later on in the show. Off the Ball's Ryder Cup coverage is brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Still to come, a Keith Andrews-centric football show. We're going to be talking Canelo GGG as well. That's coming up after 8:30. Monday Night Rugby with more on Jordan Murphy and the All Blacks' defeat to the Springboks in the Rugby Championship over the course of the weekend. But Cliona's going to stick around for the next few minutes because we're going to check in with the victorious Dublin Ladies football side.
GAA on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the Boyle Sports app. Cash out and in-play betting available in the App Store and Google Play Store.
This week, News Talk is taking the show on the road. We've teamed up with Lidl to bring you all the food, farming and culture of the National Ploughing Championships in Screggan, Tullamore, County Offaly. The Pat Kenny Show, Lunchtime Live, Moncrief and The Hard Shoulder